So this is about a sense of ease amidst uncertainty. So we'll start in a pose that tugs on tissues that house the spleen meridians. And the spleen in traditional Chinese medicine and in the Taoist view, is the organ that digests everything that we take in, food, nourishment from the outside world. And it also makes the qi of the food, the energy of the food, available to us. And that makes it available to other organs. So this is a really important way to nourish our entire system, is to make sure that the energetic pathways, the invisible rivers of energy running through the body, allow for a free, balanced flow of energy. So let's get tugging. So we'll try child's pose first, but we'll do it with a twist. In child's pose, if you need to be quite careful of your knees, you might come onto your back and draw your legs in. Oftentimes, we'll do child's pose on the shins. So I would say for this one, if you can, take your knees out wide. Maybe your big toes are together underneath your sit bones. Maybe you are actually sitting on a block, or you have a rolled up blanket behind your knees. But a nice wide child's pose, and if you'd like to take the twist, just turn toward your right thigh, reach your right arm out, thread your left arm under, and come onto the outside of the left shoulder. You can place a blanket underneath your shoulder. You can have props underneath your body to facilitate this tug on the inner thighs and a bit of a twist. So that's what we're targeting, really, is the inner thigh tug and a bit of a twist that brings some compression to the stomach. So once you've found your position, and come to stillness and stay. You can think of this practice this evening as an opportunity to feel into that ever-changing flow of experience in your own inner system, capacitating ease with that sense of constant change. Digesting the change and the transition in a way that makes it useful to you. That's what the real world application will be. So in terms of the physicality of the pose, over time, things do change. We start to feel pressure, heat, tingling sometimes on the tops of the feet or where the legs are pressed against each other. Each leg pressed on itself. You can watch those sensations. You can observe them with your mindfulness and notice that they are not so solid, that they will fluctuate. So we use discomfort. We're not interested in pain, of course. We would change our circumstances if the pose became painful. We would move out of it. But if there is discomfort present, this is a wonderful opportunity to see, can you tolerate? Can you remain mindful, patient? If you took the twist to the right, You might come up now, walk your hands to the other side, and twist to the left. So keeping the legs where they are, you'd simply turn toward the left thigh, bring your torso forward and down over it. You can reach out with the left hand, you can thread the right arm under. Can help to turn the head to the left so that you're maybe resting on your right temple. And if the head is hanging and not touching the floor, make sure you put a blanket under it. We want most of the pressure to be in the outside of the right shoulder, not in the head. And do notice, where is most of the pressure in your body in terms of your weightedness? What are your points of contact right now? Where are you literally grounded? The tops of the feet, the shins, the shoulder, maybe the left palm is down. Oftentimes in a yin yoga practice, I will start with a body scan first, just to notice if there are any areas of tension I can let go of. And then I notice, so what sensations are here that are associated with this pose? And then observing them and noticing all the fluctuations and change. The more we settle into the practice, into the body, heart, and mind, the more we can open up to the whole of experience in a given moment and see the arising, the evolving, and the passing away of sensation, sound, breath, thought, all of it. So lifting the body up and out. It will feel nice to stretch the legs out. So given where we're going for the next pose, I recommend that we lie on our front body. So you can lie down for a spell here if you'd like, in between poses, just taking a rest and feeling sensation dissipate. If you'd like to move on immediately into the next pose, it will be Sphinx. When you do move into Sphinx pose, make sure that you set it up in a way that's comfortable, maybe holding the head in the hands. Sometimes Sphinx feels quite mild, and I will take a bit of blanket under my elbows, make the back bend a little bit more potent. If you love back bending, maybe you don't do Sphinx, maybe you do Seal, hands out, elbows up. So when you're ready, finding your back bend, Sphinx or Seal. And you come to stillness and you stay. Eyes closed or open, but if open, maybe lending some clarity to the system. But if open, keep the gaze steady and soft. So how are things now? Bringing presence to whatever is here. So noticing the flow of experience. It's not a practice in preferencing. So we're not including what we like and excluding what we don't like. And in this endeavor to include it all, the aches and the pains, along with the sensation of space, that might be one way to think of including pleasant and unpleasant on the physical level. Or some nice and easy thoughts that arise and pass away and allow you to be really present. They don't seem so bad, but sometimes rumination arises. That can feel really difficult. So just sort of acknowledging the energy of that rumination and allowing it to be there. Of course, we don't follow thoughts down a path and out and away from practice. So this staying put, this stillness, this non-preferential attitude toward the flow of experience, this is the building of equanimity, of stability, of steadfastness. It's the construction, or at least the taprooting into an inner ground. Okay, so as the chimed bowl fades, you might just relax away from Sphinx or Seal, still on your front body, still on your belly, maybe just stacking your hands, elbows out on the floor, resting the forehead on the hands for a few moments, and just be with this change, this transition out of the pose into something that might feel a little bit more mild or neutral. So we've removed a specific pose from experience, and maybe things feel mild, and sometimes that can invite us to check out a little bit. But the practice, of course, is to remain checked in. So you can stay resting on your front body as long as you'd like. When you're ready for the next pose, I'm going to suggest dragon pose. So you would push up and away from the floor to tabletop position. If you have yoga blocks or stacks of books, they might be helpful in this pose. So I'll get my blocks for demonstration purposes, putting them at the short end so that they're tall for now. And we'll be moving into dragon pose. So I'll do my left leg first. I'm going to take my left foot to the outside edge of my mat, toes out, heel on the mat, so that my foot is sort of at, as if it were pointing to 10 or 11 o'clock. And I'm going to sink forward and down with my hips. And these blocks, they're a nice way to help me keep my torso up and away from the mat. But I also like sometimes the sensation of putting my blocks down and bringing my body down toward the floor. It changes where I feel the sensation of the pose. And some people will come down placing their forearms just on the floor entirely. There's so many variations of this pose. Some people allow the front knee to splay out and face it and press into it a little bit. Or bend the back knee and hold the back foot. So finding a variation that you feel tugs on. We're interested in tugging on the fronts of the legs in this pose, but many of us will also feel it in the back of the front leg. So you can close your eyes or keep your gaze low and steady. This, for many people, is a yin pose that creates a lot of sensation, which in turn can stimulate the system, the inner system, to feel agitation or unease, or even anxiety. And so the intention to remain steadfast and mindful of whatever is happening becomes an even more juicy, rich practice. So I have not instructed anything about the breath because in my practice I often will just let the breath be. It's part of experience. It flows a certain way. I'm not tampering with it. However, in this pose, if you feel as though drawing out your inhale and your exhale to make them a bit more steady would be useful, and that it will have a spillover effect, and you'd like to capacitate some steadiness, that is a wonderful way to use this pose, this container, for an inner method and practice. So if you'd like, stretching the breath out, making it a little bit more pronounced. Not deep breaths, just longer, full breaths. Depending on how you placed your body for this pose, you might feel heat rising in the shoulders. You might feel compression or stretching of soft tissue, compression of the joint or stretching of soft tissue at the top of the front leg. Back leg, all down the thigh. That tissue houses the stomach meridian. So as we tug on these tissues, knowing that we are enabling a freer flow of energy through the body. now let's switch sides. If you'd like, you can just draw your front leg back and go into a child's pose for a few moments before you take your right leg forward. Or you can lie on your belly. And when you do, move into dragon pose on side 2. Do so freshly. See what's needed in terms of props, blocks under your hands or forearms. So this time with the right leg forward, heel on the mat, toes off. Just see. Blocks at what level, blocks at all. What helps you create a stable pose in which you know that there's an effect on soft tissue. You can feel the sensation, for many of us, the top of the back leg and the back of the front leg. So we come to stillness and stay. And observe. Sometimes if our eyes are darting around, so will our thoughts. So if you feel stable enough in the position you're in, you might close the eyes or keep your gaze low, soft, and steady. So our next poses will be from our back. So as you move away from dragon pose now at the sound of the chime, you can just come onto your back and rest there for a spell in what feels like neutral. And these transitions between poses are just as important as the poses. When we move mindfully, and when we rest, we are still observant, feeling into sensation. There will often be an effect of like a dissipation or diminishing of the sensations that were present during the pose. So you can rest on your back as long as you'd like. And when you feel ready for the next pose, it will be a supine twist. We sometimes call twisted root. So starting from the back with the knees bent and the feet on the floor and the arms out to the sides. We can cross the right thigh over the left to begin the twist. And some people who love to really feel bound up in a twist will take their right foot and tuck it behind the left calf. So that's optional. It would be a milder twist to not do that. So once the right thigh is crossed over the left, we bump the hips to the right and bring the knees down to the left. And oftentimes a blanket, a pillow underneath the knees or a calf would be really nice here. You would feel as though your knees are not hanging out in space. We don't want to feel too much of a tug on the outsides of the knees. And from here you might just point your nose toward the ceiling. And if you were to look right, that would continue the twist of the spine up into the neck. If you were to look left, it's nice and comfortable for the neck. So feel free to choose any position. The right arm can come up overhead with the elbow bent, the back of the right hand on the mat or floor above the head, and leaning the right shoulder blade back can make the twist a bit more potent, particularly around the right side ribs. Finding your position, coming to stillness and staying. I come up so you can hear me better. So in our twists tonight, these last two poses, I'm going to guide a bit of breath work or visualization that can help tap into a sense of groundedness, to amplify a sense of rootedness. So I'm going to suggest that in these two poses we do lengthen the breath. 5 or 6 second long inhale, 5 or 6 second long exhale. And take a few to get that going. And we're not gulping air or pushing air out. It's not effortful. We're slowing things down. And for the next several cycles of breath, every time you inhale, just imagine that from your points of contact in your lower body, through the legs and up the legs as if they were conduits, you're drawing energy from the earth and you're bringing it into your lower abdomen. And as you exhale, you're just hosting that energy there. So the inhales you're making contact with and drawing earth energy up into the body, and exhales hosting it. So we are growing our earth chi and our sense of groundedness and centeredness here in what is traditionally, in so many traditions anyway, the seat of awareness and the place where we hold earth energy. So the lower Dantian in Taoism, the Hara in Japan, second chakra. You're still in your twist, you might take one of your hands and rest it on the belly. So inhales, earth energy up, exhales, hosting it in the belly. So with each inhale, filling further, amplifying our sense of rootedness, groundedness, contact, steadiness, stability, centeredness. So we're looking for stability without stagnation, however. So groundedness without feeling lethargic and that you don't want to move. There's still this vibrancy throughout the whole system. We are just capacitating our inner ground. And when you feel ready, you can Release yourself out of this pose, twisted root, and come to center with the knees. Put the spine in a neutral position, unwinding, undoing, taking your time. Spend as much time as you'd like resting before you go to side 2. When you are ready for side 2, this time we're crossing the left thigh over the right, perhaps tucking the toes, maybe not. In any case, we can bump the hips slightly to the left and bring the knees down to the right. It's the left arm that can reach up overhead. And once you're set up in this pose, facing whichever direction you'd like for whatever effect you'd like on the neck, once you are set up, there's nothing you need to do physically. On a physical level, this pose is perfectly passive. So if you do, when you are inhabiting the body with your attention, if you do find there's some tension or some holding, some gripping, sometimes for some reason I notice I'm contracting a calf muscle in this pose, you can simply let that go. So we'll go back to the visualization of drawing earth energy up the legs on the inhale and hosting it on the exhale. So the idea is that we end up filling up the hara, the dantian, where the earth energy, and it flows over into all the meridians, the invisible rivers or pathways for the energy of the body. You can stay in the pose as long as you'd like. When you do undo and unwind, stay on your back, maybe draw the knees in, give them a little squeeze. We'll be moving into Shavasana, final rest. So maybe a little seed pose first. And when you set up for Shavasana, you might put something behind your knees, a rolled blanket or a prop. You might keep your hands on your belly. You might place a blanket under the head for softness. So resting, and let's go back to the method of simply being mindful of the flow of all the phenomena that arise and fall in a given moment. So noticing inhales and exhales and sensations and sounds. Noticing emotions bubble to the surface and maybe evolve into something else. Thoughts can feel tricky, they can feel compelling. Sometimes we want to become entangled with them and get involved and go somewhere with them, but notice them arising and letting them go. This mindfulness of the present moment isn't an effortful seeking, it's simply a relaxing into presence with things as they are. If it feels like the method is encouraging busyness, do less. Relax more. Just be. The method is simply just being and knowing that you are being. Please take all the time you'd like, unwinding out of your Shavasana. If you'd like to stay as long as you'd like. If you come up to sit, you can take all the time you'd like, maybe even spend some moments rolled onto one or the other side of the body, curled up on the floor. And I'd like to close by doing just a short equanimity meditation, a cultivation of steadiness. So you can have your hands palms down on the heart for this, or the palms together if you'd like. And you might just inwardly recite, "May I be steady and accepting of the arising and passing away of all things." May I be steady and accepting with the arising and passing away of all things. And may I have the wisdom to skillfully meet what will come. May I have the wisdom to skillfully meet what will come. And third and final phrase, may I have the energy and will to take skillful action. may I have the energy and will to take skillful action. May it be so. I invite you at the strike of the bowl to bring your hands up to the insight center, signifying our intention to live wakefully. Bringing the hands down to the heart center, signifying our intention to live open-heartedly. And bringing the hands down to the hara, the lower dantian, the belly, the seat of awareness. And maybe bowing down to the earth as our witness. Wakefulness is our birthright. Thank you so much for joining me.